Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Women in Between podcast. I am Jaleesa, your host, and here we talk about navigating change with grace as we progress into the better versions of ourselves. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for listening to each episode, and also excited that you can now listen to us on your favorite podcast streaming service. We are on Spotify, Apple Music. We're on YouTube. So check out our episodes. Check out the episodes. Definitely subscribe so you can get any new episode updates. And I'm just really excited to dive into this next topic with you all. I think we've had a really great round of guests, but I'm really excited to also dive into some solo episodes, and always open to feedback on maybe some topics you want to hear about, talk about. We can do another Q&A. So always put anything in the chat. DM me on our Instagram, the Woman in Between podcast. And we're going to be launching on TikTok soon. So you'll be able to get some really cool clips and chat with me there. So the topic that I wanted to really dive in today really came about because I had a conversation with a friend discussing, shame and the shame that comes with being a single parent. But even like the mindset shift that you have to have when you go from having a partner or living in a dual space with someone that's helping you raise your kids and then doing that solo, how how much of a shift that changes mentally, even physically and emotionally. And for me, having the title of single mother, and even understanding that, I'm coming from a divorce, for the longest was something that I didn't want to label myself by. It was something that I had a really hard time identifying with and accepting. And I think that even shows like in some of the episodes that I've released where I'm not really comfortable being specific on my transition or labeling myself a certain way and feeling like in order for this story to be valid, to leave out the parts that might be really hurtful for me, shameful in some ways. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to, one, be more transparent about my experience transitioning into single parenthood, my transition healing after a divorce. Because I think, like I've said many times on this podcast, we heal in community just as much as we hurt in community. So the identity shift and rediscovering yourself and your dreams as a single parent was something that hit me like a ton of bricks and not what I was prepared for. I remember either I was going through the process of my divorce or I had been divorced and it was very fresh, but I was at work and I was in a conference room with about 15 people. And as they're all talking in this meeting, I start looking around at each person's left hand and realizing that every single one of them has a ring on and solidifying the fact that I am no longer a part of that club. And the title that I had spent years building my life around was suddenly changing, and I had no idea what it was changing into. So it was really a struggle, and I had a lot of bumps along the way to realize I'm not the same person that I was. The goals that I have for myself are changing because I'm now an individual, right? I no longer have a partner, but I also still have these kids. So, what will life look for me now? And I wanted to just spend some time talking about how that shift impacts us and hopefully providing you with tips based off of what worked for me. and how to help that process and that shift. So, you know, I feel like after I took the time to realize you're not in the married club, you are in this, hybrid sort of parenting dynamic. You are healing from losing a relationship. And I found myself thinking, who is Jaleesa? I had built my identity around being a wife. I had built my identity around fighting for my marriage. I had built my identity around being a mother and being 100% hands on with my kids. And when I went through my divorce, it was this realization of not only am I losing a relationship that I intended to spend my life pouring into, and having a partner that would be by my side. I built all of these goals and these dreams around this relationship, based off of this relationship and this other person. And I also entered into motherhood with the hope that I would be enjoying that experience with another person. It's not something that I intended to do by myself. And one of my girlfriends had reminded me, after my divorce and I started my healing journey, and she reminded me of me telling her after I had my daughter and knowing like, okay, this relationship might not be the best thing for me, but reminding me that I said I just don't want to be a single mother. And I chose to stay in something that was not healthy for me because I was trying to avoid what would inevitably be my fate. So I found myself in this position where I was having to redefine myself. But before I could do that, I had to really grieve the ending of a lot of dreams, and asking myself, who am I? And how do I now view, me and my kids as family, and making sure that's enough. So looking at the label of family and, understanding and being comfortable with the image that me and my kids, the three of us, that was family. And one thing that I did that I thought was really helpful from even the time that I separated with my ex-husband was I started taking a lot of pictures of just me and my kids together. And so I have hundreds of pictures of just me and my kids because I really wanted to ingrain it in my head that this image is now our family, and fully being happy with that. And even naming our family, we do naming our family. We have a family name. So we consider ourselves the Three Musketeers. And it's something that now we attach to our pictures, and we really look at ourselves as this unit. And I'm just beyond grateful for that because it helped me really shift my perspective of who I was in this family dynamic, the role I played, and the role that my kids played, in this dynamic, and fully understanding that a mother and her kids can be family, and that can be enough. It can be more than enough. And then, I think another layer to it was grieving, right? Even though I was taking these pictures, it was also grieving the fact that the fourth person that I've had in these pictures is no longer going to be here. He is not experiencing this with us. The dream that I had of experiencing all of these moments with my children and with my partner was gone. No matter what dynamic you try to put it in after that, even if it were to happen as a co-parent, the dynamic that I signed up for was no longer going to happen. And grieving that life. And for me, you know, I don't know, my experience was interesting because in a lot of ways, I grieved my marriage while I was married. So when I was going through my divorce, I was just grieving more of a lifestyle that I was publicly ending. and publicly saying like, no, I was in an experience that was not good for me. And we are no longer a unit. And realizing, my Saturdays are going to look very different. How I navigate through my life now is going to look different in terms of who I am friends with, the family that I had, and that extended family with in-laws, and the drastic changes that happened within that, and just grieving what at the time I thought were losses, but eventually showed me were gain. But there was still grief in that process for me. Um, and then, like I said, it's losing a partner, and I think no matter what the relationship is like, when you have kids involved, and there's another parent that, in some ways, at least around you, you can feel that loss to a certain extent. Like for me, I was used to being alone. I was used to feeling alone. I spent a lot of time alone, watching TV alone, going to bed alone, doing things. Like I was just very used to being alone. What I wasn't used to was having at least another body here to entertain the endless requests, to give me a moment to go to the bathroom, to have a body there so I could run to the store really quick. That was something that I felt. And had a really hard time navigating. Like those 7 p.m. Target trips, sans kids, really gave me life. And realizing like, oh, you don't have anybody here to at least like make sure they're staying safe while you do all of this stuff, changed even like to the simplest, how I shop. It's these granular things that you wouldn't even think of when you realize like, I don't have this other person here. I don't have this other body here. So yeah, that was not fun. I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out. Um, and then like that leads to, right, not only is it the grocery store, it's these new responsibilities that you now have. For me, I was now picking up and dropping off my kids to school, and navigating a job where I had to be in the office. And that was genuinely exhausting for me. Up at 4 o'clock, dropping the kids off, running to the office, trying to get as much work as you can done because you have to leave by 4, getting them by 5:30, not getting home until, about 6. And it's just an exhausting day. And not, having to then think about the type of jobs that I take, to be mindful of, you're doing the pickups, you're doing the drop-offs, even for the extracurriculars, you are doing all of that. So how are you going to make your life easier? So I mean, and even just being now the primary caretaker, where the kids are living with you 80 to 90% of the time, and in the eyes of their school, in the eyes of, like, if they're in daycare, if they are in public schools at this point, if you have babysitters, in their eyes, you are the primary parent. You are the person that is getting all of the information. You're supposed to be providing everything that your children needs. And in my situation, like, I was the one showing up, and it weighs on you. And I didn't expect that. I kind of expected, like, well, I've been doing it on my own already, so it's not going to be that difficult. But like I said, you underestimate having a body, especially when you're taking on this new responsibility. And like I said, it impacted the type of jobs that I was looking for. Like, I realized I needed to be in a fully remote job. Fully remote. I needed that flexible manager, and someone that knew how to manage a remote worker. Like, those were key elements for me. I needed to live in a community where everything was really close to each other, because I'm bouncing my kids from school to soccer practice to church, and we're consistently moving. And I'm the one moving them. So, how do I make this easy for me? And I feel like that's a whole episode in itself of how your new responsibilities really shift where you prioritize your time and how you find efficiencies for yourself to make life easier. Like now I don't step foot in a grocery store. I am fortunate where I can just order my groceries because dragging two kids in a grocery store is not really where I can spend my time, nor do I really want to. I don't even like grocery shopping, so that kind of worked in my favor. And then I also think there is just this fear of the unknown and fear of what is next. How do I navigate this? I think I've said before when I got a divorce and I was looking down this barrel of I'm going to be a single parent. What does that mean for me? What is that going to look like? Because I had not seen that example in my life. So I really wasn't sure what is right, what is wrong, what is normal, what should I be prepared for. I just didn't have that. So I think another thing that comes with the identity shift is really having to work past this fear of the unknown, right? Because we've mentioned you are not only ending this relationship, but you're ending a relationship that you built these dreams around, right? You had plans on where you were going to live, plans on how much you were going to save, and the goals that you were saving towards. You had all of these goals that stood on your marriage. You had all of these goals that could have potentially, really benefited you because you have this other person, right? And we all have, people have said marriage is an economic opportunity, right? So you might have had financial plans and goals and saw yourself in a certain, like you thought you were going to get that house and you thought that you guys were going to retire together and travel the world together. So now you're looking down this barrel of what goals do I have that are going to benefit now myself and my kids? What do I even want to do? Like for my situation, I really thought like, okay, well, we're going to be in our home for like 5 years. This is going to be a great starter home. We're going to rent out our home and then we're going to start flipping houses and that's going to be a second form of income. And it was based because I thought I had this really good dynamic where I could do like the design and my partner could be the one doing, more of the heavy lifting. But that didn't go the way that I planned. And when I found myself alone and all I had to focus on was myself, the things that I enjoyed looked very different from the things that I enjoyed when I was married. And it is incredibly scary to step out into that. Even when I was considering a different job, I had spent almost 10 years consulting with my partner on the jobs that I took and what would make the most sense for our family, inclusive of him. And the thought of entering the market and looking for a new role, finding a new company, not having this person to just spitball ideas with, thought partner was terrifying for me. And I'm sure it's terrifying for you. It's a very new dynamic. And so that's a big thing that I feel like you have to get past when you're shifting your mindset to rediscover yourself as a single parent because you have to step out on faith and you have to be brave enough to choose yourself, which for many of us, if you were in a relationship where you were not choosing yourself and it became habitual, you're not used to even thinking that way. And that's the hardest part, the mental piece and training your mind to rethink how you view life has to change. So when we talk about getting past that mindset, right, and being brave enough to imagine a future with just yourself and your kids, sans partner, it really comes into rediscovering your dreams. So for me, when I was married, I really thought like really into like home decor and decorating my home to the point where I was being approached by realtors asking me to help stage homes. I was like, that was all my social media was at the time, was me decorating my home, right? And of course, it was the stage of life I was in. It was who I had around me, like me and all my friends, like we had gotten married and we had our kids and now we had our houses. And so that's what I was doing. And I was spending my weekends going to Home Goods, going to Michael, like all of anywhere you could think of, going to these thrift stores in an effort to decorate my home. And I loved that at the time. Another thing that I loved was making charcuterie boards. Like that was a weekend thing. I love to host, I love to do charcuterie boards, all of that. And those were really some of like the only hobbies that I had. And of course, I was spending time with my kids and I would go out to dinner with my friends. But I had these hobbies that I thought at the time were fulfilling to me because of the life stage that I was in. Well, when I got divorced and I was starting to live on my own, it was the first time that I realized I had this wide open to do things that I want, do things that I wanted. And what a lot of people didn't know was when I was married, I was essentially a single parent in a marriage. And because my partner was so invested in their extracurriculars, a lot of the child rearing fell on me. So I didn't have that access, like take a Saturday morning to go and take a yoga class, right? Because my partner was asleep and I was the one with the kids in the morning. And so I didn't find opportunity to pursue myself until I got a divorce. I think that simplifies that because now it was legally required that these kids spend time with their father. And I had weekends to actually explore new things. And I understand that is not the case for everybody. I do understand that. And I do have to say, and I'm hoping I say it in the right way, you are in a situation where the father of your kids can step up and take your kids for a few hours. Please take the opportunity. Take the opportunity, put the pride aside, put the ego aside, set aside some of the control, let those kids go with their dad, spend time with their father. And you go and I just start with taking a long bath. Give yourself an opportunity to find yourself again after you've gone through something very traumatic. Ending a relationship, losing a partner is a traumatic experience, especially if you have kids. Do not make it harder on yourself because you have something against your baby daddy. You feel a certain way about his personal life. If he has the means and the time to provide a safe environment with love, and he's wanting to take those kids for a few hours or wanting to take him for a few nights, let them do that. Let them do that. And I know that doesn't apply for every situation, but if the opportunity is there, please give yourself permission to trust yourself in allowing your kids to be in a safe environment outside of yourself and giving yourself the time to heal and rediscover what makes you you. So there's my soapbox on that. But I finally had an opportunity to spend time investing in myself. And it's funny because I remember I was out one night with my kids and I had ran into an old mutual friend that knew me when I was married with my husband. And she was like, well, I hope you're still decorating. You were really great at that. And I remembered, like, even though I had moved into my own apartment, I wasn't doing all of that anymore. Like, one, I had all my stuff, so I didn't need to redecorate personally, but I did not feel a desire to do that. And even though I still really enjoyed doing charcuterie boards, like, that wasn't something that I was trying to do every weekend. I really wasn't even trying to host people. And it slowly started to change. My first like 2 to 3 years post divorce, I was gone. I was traveling a lot, something that I had always wanted to do when I was married. And so because I now was I had weekends where I could do that. That's what I did. And I traveled with my girlfriends. I traveled by myself. I saw new places, new things. I had new experiences and realized that I genuinely enjoyed that. And then I started getting back into working out. When I separated, that was the first time in 10 years that I had even gotten on a bike, gotten into a spin class, and then it just trickled to where I created this healthy, wellness focused lifestyle for myself. I now work out 4 to 5 times a week. It is ingrained in my lifestyle. My all of my friendships, they know, like, if you want to do something with Jaleesa on a Saturday morning, you better go to this workout class with her, whatever it may be. And it is so different from what I used to do. It feels like a different life. And I think, right, that happens naturally. We don't always live the same life that we did in our 20s that we do in our 30s. Thank goodness for that, because your girl was a hot mess express in the best ways. But as we grow older and we have experiences, it just, what we enjoy and what satisfies our souls, it changes. And for me, that's exactly what happened. And I had the opportunity to actually just reclaim some of those hobbies and passions, right? I got back into kayaking, ended up buying my own kayak and started doing that more on the weekends. And these are things that you would never catch me doing when I was married. And it was crazy to be able to now have the capacity to fill some of my time with things that I genuinely enjoyed and still be able to show up as a mother and provide an example of that balance and the intention to seek yourself so you could be more than enough for the ones that you love. And honestly, I don't think I would have been able to display that when I was married. And so just this this like reignitement of your passions and your interests just brings you closer to yourself. And what that led to, as I was experiencing these great moments of enjoyment, it was shaping a lot of the life goals that I was now establishing for myself. So, right, I spent about a year, 2 years just traveling like every other weekend and getting into this lifestyle of, okay, I'm going to work on the plane. I'm going to land here. I'm going to work a little bit. I'm going to enjoy some time and I'm going to get back to my life. That became kind of an ingrained routine that I was fortunate to have. And I'll asterisk this with, I have had moments where I won't travel for months. Like, I even this year, I think I'm only taking one trip this year because I needed to be rooted at home and in my community right now. So I'm not saying you need to do that to reclaim your passion. That was just mine. Because I was traveling a lot and I was also ingraining how to balance my kids and how to balance my job with that, I realized that a goal for me was to have a job where I could work from anywhere. And specifically, when my kids are on holidays from school, I want the ability to fly out somewhere with my children and just be able to work from there. My mother can come with me and she can be with them during the day. It's a great experience for her, and we can stay there for weeks at a time. That was my goal. And it really changed, like I said, the type of work I was looking for. I was now looking, I had to be remote, 100%. And I needed flexibility with the team that I was working on. And it even changed the type of work that I wanted to do. I no longer wanted to just be a recruiter. I wanted to work in project management because I saw there was a lot of flexibility within that field. So fast forward to now, I am now a project manager with a company in the education industry. So I now get all of my, not only PTO, I am off when my kids are out of school, and I work 100% remote. And as we speak right now, I'm not even in Dallas. So it completely changed the trajectory of where I wanted to be, because I now realize it's just me. I'm making these decisions. How do I create flexibility and enjoyment and balance in my life? So it's just been a really great opportunity to build on an experience that didn't serve me and create something more. And one of the things that I think really helped me was like having a vision board. And what I did was I went into Canva and I got all of these images of a life that I could imagine that I wanted my life to visibly look like. And I save that as my screensaver on my phone, on my laptop, and because I needed to see it every day to make sure that my goals were in alignment. So I say all that to say, taking the time to rediscover yourself will align you with the goals that you want in your life, right? Even with me, if I want to travel with my kids, there's a certain place that I need to be financially for that to happen. You know, I have to learn different saving practices because it is just me if I want to add on to that. And knowing that it's possible for me to do that and having examples around me of women who already, but right, those goals, it's not just I want to travel and I want to, I want to buy my house. It's, well, what practices are you creating? I had to be consistent, having to be consistent with my financial management because, right, I've gone through job loss. And if I don't have a job, I'm the primary caretaker in my home. I am the breadwinner in my home. So do I have a budgeting system? You bet, to be able to have the life that I have based on the goals that I've set for myself, based on the things that I know I enjoy as well as my kids enjoying it. So, and I want to also say another thing. I think for a lot of single moms, if you're already not getting help, there's always this inclination, well, I'm just going to move. I'm just going to move. I'm just going to move cities. I'm just going to move states. I'm just going to start over. Even if you have help, you might just feel this need to start over. And I just want to make sure, I speak to this, that making the decision to uproot your entire life after you might have just ended a situation with a partner, you're doing it on your own. I would just say really think through what that change would mean for you and your children. And I'm saying this as someone that has been more than open to the opportunity to relocate, but also understanding how pivotal my community is to me and what steps I would need to take to rebuild community in a new location. I'm not saying that it cannot be done, I'm saying that you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying really being strategic in those movements are key, because I've spoken to a lot of women where they find themselves in a new city and it's this liberating experience and it's somewhere you've always wanted to be and it is a fresh start, but then also realizing who's going to watch these kids? If something happens, who's going to watch these kids? Our kids get sick, right? Sometimes we really can't be in two, three places at once. We get sick. We need breaks. I'm sorry. I am not going to be the mother that tells you to die in the name of your children. I'm going to tell you to take care of yourself. I'm going to tell you to consider yourself, to mother yourself the same way that you would mother your children. So I am always going to emphasize you have to think about how do you give yourself a break? How do you pour into yourself? It is key. So just thinking about those things when you're rebuilding and reclaiming. And then I think the other piece is rediscovering yourself as a single mother and trying to embrace a new vision of your life is a huge goal. And because you're having to do not only emotional work, you're having to do the mental work of redefining what life looks like for you before you can even get to the physical steps. Like for me, so badly, I just wanted this quick change. Like, I'm out of this relationship. I'm better. I'm healed. I've moved on. Like, I've accomplished all of my goals. And it wasn't going to happen like that. It wasn't going to happen like that. And my therapist reminded me, she goes, it has to change up here before you can even see it. And I relate that a lot to even like my fitness journey, where for 3 years I was kind of up and down and really trying to reframe my thought process around fitness because I had some emotional abuse when it came to my weight in my relationship, and I had to break a lot of lives. And because I was in the process of just mentally breaking lives, I could not be consistent in the gym. I was still healing, I was still learning, I was still growing. And when I finally started understanding how to love myself and show up for myself, then the eating habits changed. Okay, but you still can't see anything. When I finally understood that me working out does not mean that the comments my ex made was true, then I was consistent in the gym. It doesn't mean that you saw the change. It took almost a year to see those changes. And behind that was 6 years of mental and emotional healing. It doesn't happen as quickly as you want it to. And I that I would have given myself more grace around the fact that I would not have it all figured out immediately. Like, I kind of expected for me to just be able to pivot very quickly. And I held myself to this unattainable standard of how I needed to show up as a parent. Like, I expected, like, no, Jaleesa, you need to be waking up bright and early, having cooked your kids breakfast, and you should be dressed, ready to go for work. You should be getting to them to school on time every single day. Why are you tired by the time you get to work? Why are you tired when you're getting home? Without realizing, you just took on a second job. You just took on a second job. And then on top of the fact that not only was I taking those responsibilities on, my son was having issues at school, and I'm showing up to the school at parent teacher conferences where I have the teachers looking at me saying, he's never going to be able to do this, and he's never going to be able to do that. And my ex is staring at me saying, well, he doesn't live with me. That's a lot of weight. That is a lot of weight, and it's a lot of responsibility to take on as one person. And I was so hard on myself. I was hard on myself. And because I was being so hard on myself and I was holding myself accountable, I wasn't utilizing my community to make this easier, which that has to be another episode, because I spent a lot of time putting pressure on myself to have a single parent and what I thought was a co-parent journey. And I should have had that locked down. And because I didn't, I beat myself up and I kept trying to win a race that was set up for me to fail. Because the issue with that was I was depending on my ex to be able to step up to the plate and help make this better. I was expecting the school to be able to step up and help make this better, my job to help step me up and make this better, when in reality, I had to be brave enough to reposition myself in an environment that was supportive of me. But because I felt like I should have this all figured out, I could not, I was just seeing myself in this. I couldn't see, like, no, Jaleesa, you're in a position where you're not set up for success. And until you make a decision, right, to get past the fear of the unknown, you're going to continue beating yourself up. And what I also didn't see was that in each of those small steps that was taking me towards rediscovery, there were huge moments of growth. And I should have been celebrating myself more. I should have been celebrating myself a lot more. You know, there was still a lot of gain in my experience and being able to see my kids, still thrive and evolve and grow in our situation. And the fact that they were seeing me heal and the steps that I was taking, I should have given myself a pat on the back, and so I just say it's really, it feels like it's small steps to get back to yourself. But in reality, you are making huge strides in just simply changing your mental state, how you're responding, and what you're showing your kids. And I do want to say, like, it can take years, like, really identifying who I am in this journey. Like, I feel like I'm still figuring it out, but it took me up until now to realize, if it's not working for you, Jaleesa, change it. Change it. And so I leaped out on faith and I decided to move closer to the people that were supporting me. instead of sticking around in a situation where I wasn't receiving support. And that will be a testimony for another day. But I just say, please step out on faith when you are fearing what it can come next, and giving yourself the grace when you are making those small steps into the unknown, because it is leading you towards rediscovery of yourself. And I think, this entire episode is really a statement to finding joy outside of parenting. We can all attest, we love our kids. We'll do anything for our kids. We'll give to our kids before we ever think of giving to ourselves. That is a fact. And like I said, divorce gave me an opportunity to enjoy life again, to pour into myself. It was almost like it gave me permission to seek myself. And I think for a lot of women, it is a really good distraction to just solely pour into your kids. And, there's nothing wrong with that. I have those moments as well. But I realized by me taking the time to find myself again, that was a form of self care. And I was actually pouring into my cup, and my kids were benefiting from it. Like when my kids would come back home from being with their dads, we were all almost recharged. Or even if I decided on a Friday night, we'll watch our movie together, but maybe I just want to do a paint by number set, and then being able to see mom is taking time for herself and doing something that she enjoys, and teaching them how to pursue hobbies and passions that they enjoy. And it's now gotten us to a dynamic where, my kids will be at home on a Sunday afternoon, and one of them is reading, one of them is drawing. I might be doing like a workout in the yard, and we're just all enjoying our hobbies. And that was something that I did not see growing up. And that right there, although it seems small, that's a generational curse being broken. And not all generational curses are evil. It's just you are shifting the narrative in your bloodline. Isn't that really what it comes down to? Isn't that what life is all about? And finding the ability to pursue yourself. And I think rediscovering your dreams allows you to rediscover what you like and what you don't like, what you will tolerate and what you will not tolerate, the type of spaces that you want to be in. So giving yourself the opportunity. And that's why I made the note earlier about, if you are in a position where you have community, if you have the support of the other parent, take advantage of it. Don't stronghold yourself to where you cannot pursue yourself and you are burnout. It's just not, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Um, so I just want to leave you all with, one, encouragement in the fact that shifting your mindset and then pursuing your own dreams, it takes work, and it takes discipline, and it takes, this self-awareness that you have to build and exercise, because you might not have been exercising and practicing it before, very similar to me. And transition is temporary. It is not forever and long lasting. And I think as a single mom, especially when you have young kids and you're navigating the ending of a relationship, it can feel like it will never end. There are moments where I'm just like, I'm not enjoying this experience, and it can become defeating and deflating. And I have to always remind myself, this is a moment in time. It is a moment in time. It will pass, and transition, it leads to growth. I had a really good friend tell me, transition is like God pulling the arrow back, and pulling you back just enough to where when he lets go, you are just zooming forward. And so I think I used to look at transition as a setback, when in reality it's God pulling me back so I can zoom forward. And I can say that even in separation, in divorce, in job loss, I've always come out better from that situation, because it is an opportunity for you to dig in and decide, who am I in this season and who am I wanting to be in this season? So you're handling a lot, you're downloading probably a lot of information, right? And you're trying to process, how am I going to incorporate this into a life that I want? And pursuit of yourself will always help guide that narrative for you. And so I hope that as you're going through this transition and as you're going through this time, you lend yourself some grace and you allow yourself to explore the parts that you hid for a while and rediscover new parts of you, because it is so difficult, but I can stand as a testament that it is so worth it. My life looks nothing like it did now. When I say I burned worlds down, because I was just rediscovering what I enjoyed, rediscovering myself, rediscovering how to love myself. And all of a sudden I was like, wait, I don't like this and I don't like this, but I enjoyed that. And how am I going to build my life around the things that I enjoy? And even reshaping, how do I show up as a parent now that I have this role? So I just really want you to feel encouraged that the shift that you're going through is normal. The fear is so, I ask for you is, you know, what is a dream? What is a dream or a passion that you are wanting to explore? What is something that has been on your bucket list that you've been wanting to do and you've been telling your friend and your friend and your other friend that you want to do it? And how are you going to take one step, just one step this week to making that happen? And for me, I feel like I have a lot. And so I'll be sharing that on our social media platforms. So please make sure, if you're not, follow us on Instagram, The Woman in Between. We are on TikTok. There will also be a place for you to comment here in whatever platform you're listening to us to. But take some time this week and think about, what is one goal that you're wanting to step towards, and how are you going to take one step this week to achieve it? Thank you so much for joining in again for another episode. I am incredibly excited and encouraged to hear about your life transitional journeys and how you're navigating them. Always excited to extend you grace in those journeys, and I will see you on the next episode.